Hey dog, go on, go on, good girl, go on, go on, good girl, go on, that's a good girl, stay. Wait for dad. Halfway done yet. Post torn. Well, this is a different studio here in the Nutnfancy project. I've never set this up ever in, you guessed it, TNP. First time for everything. So for this video, I'm standing in front of my blast door in the missile silo, so to speak. Yeah, only the best here in the Nutnfancy project. Thank you for watching. Thanks for clicking on the video. I think this will be time well spent for you, whoever you are. In the Nutnfancy project, I make a lot of videos on a lot of different subjects. My subscribers know this. They follow me. They support me in it. I thank you for your friendship and that support because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of money to produce this independently the way I do here in TNP. But what is most rewarding for me is that I feel like in some small way, I'm helping people all around the world. That's what motivates me, and that's what this video is about. I'm not looking to make money. I'm not looking to become famous. In fact, I'd prefer to stay behind the camera if I possibly could, but it just won't work. I got a lot of stuff to show you in this video. No, my job is to help you and your situation, wherever you live. Maybe you live in Europe, maybe you live in the United States, in Alaska, Pacific Islands, wherever. This video is applicable to you. Here comes your attention step, okay? If for whatever reason one of two things happened, what would you do? And those two things are as follows. Your municipal water supply cuts off for 30 days. Or that same water supply for whatever reason becomes contaminated. You can't use it for 30 days. They cannot restore the water for 30 days. And let's say that situation exists arbitrarily 300 miles around you. So you may say, well, it's only in my city, I would just go to the next city. Well, let's say it's a widespread natural disaster. And as you know, this happens frequently. What are you going to do for that water supply? I have been preparing and working on the research for this video for about 6 months now. And in that preparation, I interviewed seriously in person about 200 households. And I asked the question, what is your water supply, your water storage right now in your house, wherever you live? And I will say, honestly, about 4%, probably less, had anything approaching what I think is enough water stored on their premises. So what are you going to do? If the water supply cuts off, it's contaminated, are you ready to go? That's what this video is about. I'm going to tell you my approach in probably 2 decades to this situation, storing water at your house, at your cabin, wherever you live, wherever you think it makes the most sense. First, some philosophy, as I'm known for. This is not the end-all way to store water. There's a lot of different approaches. I'm going to share with you mine, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Like I said, it's proven in a lot of different ways in my own family and with friends I know. But there's a lot of different approaches to it. My main concern is that you have some approach. You have some water on your premises. In fact, like I will hit throughout the video, as much as you can possibly store. If we're talking philosophy though, you got to ask the question, do I need a water supply? Maybe you are depending on, I don't know, a swimming pool in your backyard. Or if you live near running water or a body of water, you're like, hey, I've got that right there. You know, I can filter it. I'm set up to do that. No worries, nothing. I got it covered. Thanks for the video though. Well, don't kid yourself, because if you have a water supply, let's take a swimming pool for instance, it may be contaminated. You may have fallout of whatever kind. You may have a volcano eruption. You could have dust, ash, debris falling into that swimming pool, making it bad, non-drinkable. Secondly, you may have bacterial contamination. You could have a flooding situation which reaches your valuable swimming pool and now is completely contaminated. Good luck with that. How about a hurricane? A tornado, which it just blows debris again and all types of crap into the swimming pool. Could you filter the water? Could you purify it to the state where you could use it? Perhaps. We're going to talk a little bit about purification. We're mostly focusing on storage here. But I wouldn't count on it. I would count that as extra. You should have a separate, sealed, purified, self-contained water supply, water storage on your premises at all times. Same with a creek, a lake nearby your house. You're like, hey, I got water right there. Well, and I'm going to be straight up with you guys, I always am. Would you want to be filtering out of that body if you knew there were dead bodies upstream, dead animals? I don't mean to get graphic, I'm just being honest. In a lot of different natural disasters, even man-made disasters, that's the situation. That emergency services cease to operate. So you cannot count on them taking care of you. You can count on yourself. Be self-reliant. Be self-contained to the maximum extent possible. So that creek, you could have all types of contamination in it that you may not, even if with a water filter, you cannot make that water palatable. So the answer is yes, you need a water storage. Now you may be saying, well, in my situation, I'm not planning on staying at my cabin or wherever I'm at. I'm going to bug out to a certain location. I've always said here in TNP, you're a lot better off to just stay put at your house, at your primary residence, and stay there as long as you possibly can, with all your preparations, and just relax and ride out the storm, hopefully with your preparations. So, and I bring this point up because some people say, well, you know, I'm bugging out, I don't have room or capability to carry water. And that's true, but you may be injured too. Seriously, someone in your family, your friends may be injured and you may be stuck there. So if you didn't plan to have any water on hand, and now you're like, well, I was going to bug out to this certain location, you can't get there, now what are you going to do? Okay, so local water sources are contaminated, or, forgot to say this, if they are not contaminated, they are completely overwhelmed with local populace. Okay, and if you don't believe me, go look in any natural disaster, especially in the third world, and you will see lines upon lines of people who are going there trying to get their water. And that water is almost always contaminated. Nevertheless, they are so desperate, they're doing anything they can to stay alive, and they're seeking water. We've seen this in the southeast through multiple hurricanes, where that was probably the most valuable commodity being sold. This, gallons of water. You know, are you going to depend on the FEMA trucks to take care of you? Don't. Store up a lot of water, as much as you possibly can. So, if you're committed to water storage, the question is, how do I best achieve it? And more importantly, everyone will always ask, how much do I need to store up? Well, I'm coming to you from an experience of backpacking and being in the outdoors all my life. My subscribers have seen a lot of the videos showing this, discussing this in my kit videos like the CES, the Pilot Survival Kit, the Urban Survival Kit. This is discussed. So that's my background. That's where I'm coming from. And in this foundation of experience, I've learned so much. One of the acronyms that I teach my viewers is TCE, and that is time, calories, and energy, always in short supply, especially in an outdoor situation when you're self-contained. You don't have emergency services. You don't have a 7-Eleven around the corner, a grocery store. You can't depend on anybody but yourself, and you've got to stay warm, you've got to stay fed, and you've got to stay healthy. How much TCE do you have? And this gets directly to the water situation. Perhaps, again, someone says, well, I don't need to store water. I'm going to filter it. I have my swimming pool, whatever. TCE comes into play. You're going to be doing a lot to put food on the table for your family, to take care of your family, to take care of yourself. You may have, again, some serious medical issues you're dealing with. I would recommend de-stressing yourself by storing up this. Because otherwise, you're going to be just like me in the backpacking situation, traveling to go get water, spending many hours to secure a water supply. You might be competing with others if it's limited. You're a lot better off to minimize the time, calories, and energy expenditures for something else, because you're going to be busy. You're going to be like our pioneer ancestors who worked non-stop to feed their families and to overcome hardship, especially when the weather gets really bad. So how much to store? On average, how many gallons a day do you think the average person uses when normal municipal services are available? By the way, here in TNP, I call that rule of law. In other words, everything's going great. Emergency services are in play. You've got clean running water coming out of the faucet. How many gallons a day are you using on average? That number would be about 150 gallons. Now, if you have teenage daughters, the number will be about 500 gallons per teenage daughter. Those parents with teenage daughters, I know, are laughing. I know for a fact. Or any teenager for that matter. But no, 150 gallons, which, yes, is a lot. Because honestly, in this society, we take clean water for granted. We turn on the faucet, it flows, great, it's very cost effective, it's affordable. We don't think anything of it, we take it for granted. It's just part of how we live life, and perhaps some people think they're entitled to clean water. If you were to travel outside the United States, down in South America, some other third world nations, you would see things completely differently and understand how much of a blessing clean water actually is. And that in fact it is in very short supply, and it can be traced to a lot of sicknesses in those countries because they don't have clean water, they don't have great sanitation, and those two things mix, the drink water and the sanitation problems. Now fortunately here in the United States, generally speaking, we don't have that problem, or in England, or in any other developed nation. We're blessed to have that clean water, and because of it, we're using a lot of it, 150 gallons every day. Let's go back to my backpacking. So I'm up in the mountains, and I'm doing a lot of stuff. I'm working, I'm building fires, I'm cooking food, sometimes I'm setting traps, sometimes I'm hunting, and I'm also procuring water, spending a lot of TCE doing it. How many gallons a day do I get by? Myself, from my own experience, how many gallons a day do I burn? 1.5. And that's another foundational principle for this video. I know for a fact that I can get by with 1.5 gallons of water in normal situations. If I'm doing a lot of manual labor, or if it's really hot outside, so like it's in the 90s, I'm in the sun, that number is going to go up. It's going to be more like 2.5, maybe even 3 gallons a day. And I spend a lot of TCE getting it. Going to a location where I can scout out clean water, filtering it, storing it. It's a constant process. You just, you don't have a faucet. You're generating it yourself. So when we ask ourselves in our house, how many gallons of water do we store up? Let's use that as a foundational principle. 1.5 bare minimum. 2.5 gallons per day per person. And by the way, I'm going to abbreviate that with triple PD. That is PPPD, per person per day. 2.5 gallons would be a great number, but let's just average it and say 2 gallons a day per person. That's what you need to have. How much and how long, Nutton, do we need to have that water? I would say bare minimum at least 30 days. At least. That's a scenario, right? I said, hey, your water's getting cut off for 30 days. Do you have enough to be independent and to support your family or whoever is living with you in your household? And I guarantee you, if you're watching this video, the answer is probably no right now. I hope that will change for your situation. It is heavy. It takes room to store water. In fact, it's extremely heavy. 8.35 pounds per gallon of water is what it weighs, and that's a lot. So getting back to transporting water, carrying it around with us, we can do it on a very limited basis, but chances are, at least for the water storage, it's going to be used where it is stored on premise. And I will answer, hey, I don't have room for it, with the following. You do if you're creative. Even if you live in an apartment, you can find places and ways to store water. I'm going to talk about them in this video. 2 gallons a day, PPPD, bare minimum. Now, next question. We've decided we're going to store up water. We've decided that we need 2 gallons per person per day to get through this. Do I need to treat the water before I store it? There's a lot of questions about this. And there's a lot of thoughts about it. Here's the way I've done it, and that's what this video is about, is my system that I've proven, at least where I live, that's worked. The answer is no. Because the water I'm using is coming from a municipal treated water supply. That's not to say it's sterilized, that it may not have, that it's completely free of pathogens or cooties, as I call them. No, I'm not saying that. But in storing this water up, which I have done and which I will show you, for 7 years at a time, cracking into that container without anything in it, well, not anything. I do use one additive, which I'm going to talk about here. I have found the water to be completely palatable. Great. I am not a believer in putting household bleach in the water or chlorine or anything like that because, in my experience, having experimented with this a lot in the 1980s, it really ruins the water. Now, someone might say, well, I believe in doing that because it's going to store longer, you kill everything, and I don't care about the taste. Well, I would recommend you try it and you drink that water. So, mix up the bleach in the recommended solution. There's all types of information on the internet. Store it up and then drink from it and tell me if you like it. You'll feel like you're drinking from a pool. It's gross. I don't like it. My approach to water is actually using something called stabilized oxygen. There's a container of it right there. I've used it in my water supplies since probably 1994. And I've stored water with stabilized oxygen for at least 7 years. Again, cracked it open, drank it, and I was surprised how good it tasted. Is it a perfect solution? I would say probably not. And if you don't know what stabilized oxygen is, I have some technical stuff here if you're really interested. It is just basically stabilized O2 in a certain solution. I think this is 9%. There's a place there, look at the link, that sells 35% stabilized oxygen, and it kills bacteria. It's sodium chloride stabilizing the O2 molecules. That's what it is. And it is a sanitary, I shouldn't say a sanitary, but just, again, a way to kill the cooties. The best thing I love about stabilized oxygen is that it's taste-free. You don't know it's in there. You don't smell it. It's just taste-free. So ideally, we store up our water. We put stabilized oxygen in it. And in the sidebar, you will see my recommended dilution amounts that I use. I think I use 1 ounce per 55-gallon drum. That equates to about 10 drops per gallon. And hopefully that kills all the pathogens, i.e. cooties. I seal it up, I keep it in a dark place, and I store it for at least 7 years. That's right, 7 years before I swap it out. That's what's worked for me and my water supply. Now, you may get your water from a completely different source. It may be of lower quality, maybe higher quality, and the length of storage may vary where you're at. Also, you may live in a very hot climate. You can't keep it in a dark place. Maybe your storage length will go down before the water becomes really gross. But the second half of my application of storing and using the stabilized oxygen is I will filter that if I need to. To me, that's the best approach. So I use a flavorless stabilizing solution. I shouldn't say stabilizing, but sanitizing solution when I store it up. And then if I crack it open years down the road, let's say I forget and I don't open it up for 10 more years and I drink out of it and I go, wow, this really sucks. What I'll do is I will filter the water, and I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about a few filter options for that. That is the primary purpose in my system, is that it's to filter my water supply if and when it becomes gross, okay, contaminated. Secondarily, I'll use them for external water sources, right? So let's say I do have a creek in my backyard. I can ascertain it was not contaminated. It's still usable. I still have a swimming pool. It's usable. Heck, I'll break my water filter out. This is my previously reviewed, highly beloved Katadyn Hiker Pro. Highly recommended. It is a backpacking water filter. Here is an MSR, I believe, Sweetwater, also outstanding. These are going to run about $65 to about $80 a piece. If you filter clean water with these, you'll get about a 200-gallon duration out of the cartridge, maybe longer when it's filtered really clean water. So you break in your water barrel, you go, wow, there's some moss in there, it somehow got contaminated. You'll use that and you'll purify your water source. This is the old Pure Explorer, I believe, before Katadyn bought them out. I showed this in a review. This is awesome. This is more of a group filter. I think it has a cartridge capacity of about 600 gallons. And I have spare filters for them. You know, perusing local outdoor supply shops, I find deals like this. I mean, that Pure Explorer was, I think at the time, about $150 filter, and now I found an extra cartridge for it for 15 bucks. That's a good deal. But I would not count on these for large groups. Like, let's say you have a family of 4. Is this a great option for you? I think it's a minimal option. It'll get you by for those 30 days. Remember, you got 4 people, each of them needing about 2 gallons a day to just drink and eat, by the way. Forgot to mention that. We're not talking about showering. You're not going to be taking bubble baths. No, you can forget about that. You'll be lucky to get a sponge bath every week because water is going to be at a premium. At least potable water. Now, if you find a source that is not potable, you can use that for bathing. If you can rig up a shower of some sort, rock on, do that. So the best option that I find for filtering is not so much the backpacking filters. Those are minimal. They're better than nothing. I recommend you have at least one of those on hand. At least one of these. Preferably a whole bunch of extra cartridges, because you may have to bug out, leave all your water supplies behind. You would integrate this into your bug out kit. It would come along. No, the best option is something like this. Told you I was going to show you guys some cool stuff. This is called, I hope I say it right, the British Birkenfeld water filter. Our family purchased this one way back in 1994. Long time ago. And yes, they're kind of pricey. I think they run about $235 depending on how many filter elements you get. There's other versions as well. This is not the only one. Katadyn has one. It's a Katadyn Ceradan. It's $250. It's also a gravity water drip filter. It has 40,000 gallon rating, that Katadyn. It has 3 elements. It does about 1 gallon per hour. Filters down to about 2 microns. So does this one. And this one is a 4 filter element. Drip filter is what this is. You can probably figure out how this works. You just pour water in the top of it, preferably filtered out already. And I'm talking about you don't want to pour like muddy stuff in there, because those are ceramic filters. You want to keep those clean. And the way you would do that, let's say you're filtering an external water supply, you got lucky and found one. Just use this, a paint filter. Okay, I bought these at Walmart. Standard cone paint filter, and that's what you would put your water in, and that keeps the big stuff out right here. And then it just slowly trickles through those ceramic filters and gathers in the bottom half right here, and then you have a spigot. Excellent. They work great. They are very proven. All of these types of water filters, the Birkenfeld, the Katadyn, and there's another brand out there I wrote down here. I'll find it if I can. It's the Aquacera Dalton SS4. It's about $230. These are all made of 304 stainless steel, polished. They're very proven with the Peace Corps, with Red Cross, a lot of emergency services around the world. It's the best, excuse me, it's the best way to filter water for a group. No, it's not a backpack filter, but we're not really talking about backpacking here. We're talking about, your bivouac, your place of refuge, your house. This should be a core portion of your water system for the reasons we're talking about. If my water supply goes bad, I can filter it. If I have an external supply, I get lucky, I can filter it, and then I only use my water storage when everything else goes to crap, right? How do I store the water up? Good question, and there's lots of ways. I'm gonna go, first off, what I consider the bad way, okay? And that is any container that has been used for something else. Pop container, milk jug, you know, Coke, syrup container. You can buy 30-gallon barrels, or even these 55-gallon barrels like this for cheap, but you find out the reason they're so cheap, by the way, I've gone through this myself, because back in the 80s I bought some Coke syrup barrels, or soda pop syrup, whatever they were, and I was like, wow, these things are only 15 bucks, awesome. So my wife and I, we rinsed them out, put baking soda in them, we soaked them for weeks and weeks, scrub, couldn't get the taste out of it. It was awful. Plus that can leach into the water, it can create more of a breeding ground for bacteria. Stay away from anything that's been used for anything else besides potable water. That's a bad option. I don't recommend it. And liter pop bottles, no, I wouldn't do that. I talked to a lot of people in my interviews, by the way, that is their water situation. They're like, well, I don't got a lot, but we do have about 30, you know, Dr. Pepper bottles that we've rinsed out and we have water on hand. They're like, well, it's better than nothing. I would say, yes, it's better than nothing. And they say, well, it's also portable. So if I have to bug out and take those water containers with me. You can, but they're not ideal because those, let's just look at the liter pop bottles. They are cylindrical. They roll. And so if you drop them, they go rolling and rolling and rolling. And if in their back of a vehicle, they're just probably the worst possible shape. This one would be a better option, kind of a square container water jug. This is just bought from the local supermarket. It's, you know, purified water. But this is also, I think, a bad option. It's better than nothing, but the reason I say bad option is because, check this out. If you take this container and just drop it onto concrete about 2 feet high, it breaches. It's done. It dumps water everywhere. And I learned that the hard way as well, in my own experience. Don't count on any store-bought container to be rugged enough to store. And also, it's not what I say, or a lot of people say, BPA free, meaning that it has a plastic that can leach into the water over time, not super healthy for you. It's not a big concern of mine, but it is a concern. Those are bad options. Let's go to the good options. These are small purpose-built water containers. They're not being repurposed for water storage. They are built for water storage, and they are BPA free, and a lot of them are stackable. So you know, they're very portable, at least relatively portable, and you can fill up a bunch of these and stack it in the available space you have. Let's go back to that apartment situation. Hey, Nutnfancy, I don't have any place to store water. Well, answer, do you have any room under your bed? Well, yeah, I think I do. Okay, then you could go with 3.5 gallon, 3.6 gallon containers and just stack them under there. You know, be a great option. The cost is going to be around $20 each, but that is subject to change, depends on where you go. A company by the name of Water Brick makes some. Here's a picture of some. Also, Reliance makes what are called Aqua Pack 5-gallon containers, of which I have one right here. Check it out. Oh yeah. Okay, not completely full. And you can see it's kind of dripping too. Let's see if I can get that to seal all the way. That's another reason I want to show you this on camera. Because if you get a water container, you better test it, right? Because if I lay this horizontally, let's say I bought 20 of these, they are the bulk of my water supply, and I didn't test them, and lo and behold, I find out that each one I purchased had a leaky seal for whatever reason, whether it's a Reliance brand, Water Brick brand, you're not going to be happy. This one, because I didn't tighten the lid down all the way, was leaking, but let's check it now. It's doing okay. This one has a spigot that is internal. This Reliance brand, it's 5 gallon. So I would unscrew this, take the sticker off, screw it inside, and now I can use the water on it. It has a venting cap right here, right? So I can vent it. This would be probably my preferred container for a smaller container. I do like the water brick. I have not used them. I cannot vouch for their quality, how they work. The disadvantage of those is they have a lot of corrugations in them for their stackability. So if for whatever reason you get that mossy or slimy inside that water brick, good luck cleaning it. Now this squarish container from Reliance, this Aqua Pack, is much more cleanable. See how the straight sides on it? Looking in the viewfinder so I make sure I'm showing you right. And they are stackable. And they are very heavy too. Remember, 8.35 pounds per gallon. Well, the 7-gallon one weighs freaking 58 pounds. That's this one right here. Also by Reliant. Okay, and this is the same type of situation. I have a lot of years of use with this, not this exact one, but another one. This is a great container. High density polyethylene. Reliant says BPA free. It is heavy though, don't kid yourself. I want you to really absorb that, because if you have elderly folks in the house, they can't move these. If you have someone who's injured, they're not going to move them. Even a 5-gallon container, you might have to go for something smaller. So they fit in small spaces. They offer higher portability. If you have to bug out, you have to do that. You don't have an option. Another downside is, I talked about cleaning it, but you need a lot of them. And as such, they're not super affordable, or they're not your most cost-effective option. When we talk about money though, keep in mind that when you're preparedness-wise, we talk about food storage, all the other things we need like lighting, heating, all the necessities of life. In my opinion, water storage is one of the most cost-effective things you can do in your preparedness system. In the big scheme of things, you're getting a lot for your money. Let's say 700-gallon supply, 745-gallon supply, which will be my example later on. To me, that's money well spent, because you'll never have to buy it again if you buy smart. So from what I know, my use, this Aqua Pack recommended in the good option, and that is using smaller containers, 3.5 to 5-gallon, perhaps 7-gallon containers, and that takes us to the better option. In the better option, you will be using larger containers. And the reason I say it's better is because it's more size efficient. If you can find a place for a 15-gallon barrel, a 30-gallon barrel, a 55-gallon barrel, this bad boy right here, you're going to be able to store a lot more water. Remember, 2 gallons per day, pppd. That's a lot. You're going to be going through those small containers like crazy. They're just going to be all over, empty. You know, it's going to look like the top of Mount Everest with their fuel canisters. They're going to be everywhere. You can fit these larger barrels, and I have one I'm going to try to hoist up here for you, in the side of your garage, which may or may not be the best location, because if it gets hot in there, you want to store these in a cool, dry place as best you can. But I've stored them in my garage for years and years, and they've done great. And I'm going to show you one that's come out of the garage, and we're going to do a little water taste on it after 7 years. No joke. You can store them in your basement, in a shop, in a bedroom corner. There are specialty barrels too that are corner shaped and go tall all the way to the ceiling. And once filled, this is an important part, you probably will not be able to move these. Okay, now the 55-gallon drum, when it's filled, 459 pounds, this bad boy right here. That ain't going nowhere. You're going to go to it. And you're going to use a system like this spigot, which screws in the top of your water barrel to pump the water out. That's how you're going to do it. And you'll transfer it into a smaller container. Here's another one I didn't show you, a generic one. These work great. And so you just transfer it. And then when it gets, to about 1/4, full, then you can start picking it up and dumping it in. Again, if you're healthy and strong enough to do so. 55-gallon drum, honestly, is my favorite storage method to form the backbone of your water storage system. That's what you should have. Look in your house, your cabin, your bug out location, say, where can I put these? Try to prevent these from getting frozen, by the way, because water expands when it freezes, and it can actually crack or breach that water barrel. So try to stay away from that. Now, I would say these, again, are the most effective way to bulk up your water supply. But again, the downside is they are not portable, and it is a hassle to exchange the water out of them. We do it about every 7 years in the Nutnfancy family. and it's a pain in the butt. But as a family, we get out, we dump all the water out, we clean them out, we double check that there's no growth, algae, whatever, moss growing in them, moss, whatever, and cooties in it. And then we fill it up again, we put our stabilized oxygen in it once again, and we're good for another 7 years. Okay, now the container I'm going to attempt to lift on the table right now is, I believe, a 20 gallon, actually I'm sorry, it's a 15 gallon container. Yeah, it's heavy, and we're going to taste the water out of it. Okay, so wish me luck. This is not set up, by the way. Totally not set up. I should have someone here helping me. I'm insane trying to lift this thing. All right, now this is just, holy freak, that's heavy. Oh my gosh. That's what I'm talking about. Look at the label on there. Can you see it? Okay, so it says 7607 is when my family stored this up, long before TNP, at least the official kickoff of TNP. And it says rinsed, new water, aerobic 0.75 ounces. So that's the stabilized oxygen. So that's what the lid looks like after being stored in my garage. Now I'm going to attempt to siphon it. Oh my gosh. And taste the water. Now for these barrels, I can't believe my table's holding all that weight because it's perched up on 2 boxes. You're going to need this, a bung wrench. Okay, so this has not been cracked open since 2007. Not set up. I'm just going to siphon it out with a polyethylene tube. Got a glass here. Hope it's good. We're going to find out. Okay, here we go. Very low tech here. And I haven't seen, you know, the pump siphons for these smaller sizes. All right, a little spit in there. Check it. So this is my storage water. Since 2007, stabilized oxygen. Let's see how it tastes. I'll tell you right now, it looks pretty good. The reason I'm such a fan of that stabilized oxygen is because I've just used it and tasted it before, like I said at the outset. Looks clean. I don't see any floaties. I don't see any debris. No moss. 7 years. Not even aerated. A little bit of spit in here, but whatever. Excellent. I would rate that water an A+. I kid you not. Since 2007. That's why I'm making this video, is to show you my system. Don't put chlorine in it. Don't put household bleach in there. No. Stabilized oxygen. The source, again, will be shown throughout the video. Do that. Call it good. If it does, for whatever reason, go bad, filter it. Now, this might be a good point to bring up the following. Some guys will say, well, I'm just going to boil water. Well, I don't think you are, because that's going to take a lot of energy. And you won't have enough storage capability to boil water. You're going to need that for cooking, perhaps even for heating if you have someone who really needs that heat. For instance, if you have kerosene on premise, you have a kerosene stove, do you really want to, you know, burn all that boiling water, purifying water? You can do it, but I don't think it's a realistic option. It's a lot better going with something like this. Let me haul this sucker down. Oh my gosh, it's so heavy. My freaking back. Oh. So that's a downside of those bigger containers. They're very hard to transport. And that's just a 15-gallon container. The 55-gallon, the 30 gallons, forget about it. They're staying where they are. You're gonna pump the water out. But I still consider it the better option in food storage continuum. Last but not least is the best option, okay? Now when I say best, I'm saying it's gonna give you the most capability for the money spent. It's gonna offer you the best value. And I call these things water buffaloes. Some folks call them super tankers. And these are huge water containers, 150 gallons, 200 gallons. The one we have in our family, check this out, is 320 gallons of water. That's a big container, and it's extremely heavy. Let's see, the super tanker, there's a brand called the super tanker, 250 gallons. It does have an upgraded commercial spigot on it. I like that. I'm talking about the 250 gallon super tanker. It's about $385 plus shipping if you're going to mail order it, which I don't recommend. Go buy it and take it to your house. But that's a great option. Extremely heavy once again. And I wrote my weight down on my freaking 320. Oh yeah, here it is. 2669. So I bought this from Honeyville Foods, the 320 gallon one, and full it weighs almost 2,700 pounds. But the upside to that is it's basically an enclosed and protected water source that cannot get contaminated. Let me back that up. It actually can get contaminated because the lid on that particular model does not seal particularly awesome, but nothing like debris, you know, I don't know, fallout. None of that I don't think will get into that 320 gallon. Why not? What I'm expecting with that larger container is that I can filter it. So if it's not an airtight container, if for whatever reason it does get something in there, I'll just filter it out. And it provides the bulk of my water supply, and yes, maybe even some sanitation water that you can take a sponge bath with because you have a little bit of breathing room because you have more stored up on the premises. They're cost effective too. Those larger containers, again, the 150, 200, 300 gallon containers, you're gonna have to find a place for them, either a gravel portion of your driveway somewhere where it will support the weight uniformly, or a concrete pad is even better. But man, they're big, and if they leak or breach, look out. It's gonna be like an above ground swimming pool, cutting loose. It's gonna be like, I don't know, parting of the Red Sea. Now on my model, the one I bought from Honeyville Foods in Utah, the 320 gallon water buffalo, again, that's my term, it has plastic spigots on it because I haven't upgraded them. I'm not the expert on how long these will work and how awesome they are, but it has about 3 years of use, completely stored out of doors, both in the summertime, springtime, fall time, and yes, wintertime. It's got down to 20 degrees and it's been fine. That might be a question you have if you live in a freezing area. You know, will these things freeze and crack on me? They haven't yet. Not this one. You know, downsides again, some do not provide an absolute airtight seal. You may have to filter some water. You can't move them. They're big and they're bulky. But man, the upsides are you have a lot of water pretty much covered. Okay, so that's the bad, good, better, and best approach to water storage. To summarize, the bad is containers that have been used for anything else besides potable water, pop containers, milk jugs. Even these I would classify in the bad category. Sorry, they're just not tough enough, rugged enough. If they drop, they're going to break. The good, the smaller containers, 3.5, maybe 3 gallons to 7 gallons. I showed you those. Those are good. They can fit under beds. A lot of models, you can stack them. You can make kind of furniture out of them. Okay, those are an awesome option. Downsides are they don't carry a lot of water. You're going to be going through a lot of them very quickly. And some with all the corrugations are going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible to clean. Next one is the better option. And those are the mid-size barrels, 15, 20, 30, and even 55 gallon, which is large. To me, those are the better option. Maybe the bulk of your water supply, if you can fit those in, should be those. Fit them in. And those 30 gallons, which I just hoisted up there, they're actually pretty narrow. They'll go against the wall in your garage and you can park your vehicle next to them. You won't even know they're there. And then finally, the best we just covered. That is the very large super tanker or water buffalo options. I highly recommend, if you can possibly do it, fit one of those in to your system. You will be so glad you have it. Because what's going to happen is if this thing kicks off and you go without water for 30 days, you watch what happens in your neighborhood. You're going to have a lot of desperate people, especially if you live like down in Las Vegas and in Phoenix, in a dry area. where you don't have a local water supply, there's no chance at all of an external water, it's all pumped in, you're going to have people dying, literally dying for lack of water. You can go a long time without food, right? How long can you go without water? Not very long. All of us have some type of fat store usually. We'll burn that off. You got to have that water. Wrapping it up. Here's my sample storage for a family of 4. Okay, remember, my goal is to have 2 gallons PPP day. PPP day. Per person per day. Okay, so to provide 2 gallons per day per person, I have one 320, this will be in the sidebar description by the way, one 325 gallon water buffalo stored in the backyard, shop, wherever. Outside the house, outside the cabin. It's tough enough. Now I need to mention that too. These containers have been in use in industry for a very long time. They're not brand new. They've been using these very strong upright polyethylene containers in the food industry, in the soda pop industry for eons. They're extremely strong. They can take the out of doors. They can take weather, no problems. Get a dark colored one, at least blue, preferably black, so that light does not promote the growth of bacteria in that water supply. Okay, so back to the family of 4. So we've got one 325 gallon water buffalo. We could substitute that, I don't know, for a larger container or 150, 200s. Then we have 5 55 gallon water barrels stored around the premises. It's that big one I've been showing you. We got 5 of these. Hey, Nutnfancy, dude, that's a lot of storage. You want to live, don't you? You got to do what you got to do. Then you have 7 15 gallon water barrels stored in the kids' rooms. Okay, maybe you have 2 in this room, 2 in that room. And by the way, if you need to move those, just attach a hose and you can siphon them out. In years past, we actually hooked up a water pump, like an external 120 volt water pump, a bilge pump, and we pumped them out with that. So you actually don't have to move them if you get creative. You can siphon them like you saw here. You have those, and then to finally, for this family of 4, we have 12 3.5 gallon water bricks stored under bed. Now, a family that has that, a 325, 555, and 12 3.5 gallon containers will have 745 gallons. That family is ready. And again, for what you're getting, it's going to be cost effective. All you got to do is put it on your list of things to do, and please do that immediately. Get it done. It gives you peace of mind knowing you have that 745 gallons stored up on your premises for the very philosophy we talked about at the outset. As you've seen on my containers, I date my water and I tell what I put in them. Again, I'm using stabilized oxygen. If you want, you can put in chlorine. I don't recommend it. Chlorine or whatever, can't speak, whatever other additive. Just use stabilized oxygen. Filter it out if you need to. There you have it. Water storage ideas from the Nutnfancy project delivered to you only to help you. I hope you never find yourself in that situation where there is no water coming out of the faucet, or if it is coming out, it is so contaminated it'll make you sick or perhaps even kill you. That has happened, by the way, here in the United States of America. It will happen again. Now's the time to prepare. Thanks for watching.